That's it. There ain't no home. Let me get this off the cooler ball with that. See if there are any questions. Anybody fly bulb lately for a 35 millimeter projector, you'll find they're about $20 or so. And if you buy one for this projector, it's 40. So one is rather careful to cool down the bulb. So we'll get this going. There we go.
We had some interesting questions after the first group, so think about your questions and Joe will try and answer them. And even if we have some other questions about the house, maybe Gail or Kyle would be happy to answer them for you.
Was it your family that built the home?
That's my grandfather. Joe number one.
And how many gardeners did they have?
Yeah, I think that's okay. What was the question?
How many gardeners did it take to?
They had 3 full-time gardeners.
Who designed the
Probably
gardens?
some extra help if it was hot.
Joe, who designs the gardens?
Fred Cole.
Fred Cole, I believe Barbara's the expert on that.
How much of the original land is part of this house? How much land is there around the house?
Well, the original land purchase was about 25 acres, and 19 of it was in gardens. So that Japanese garden, which is up off the road to your, as you go out, it would be on the left. Rose garden is on the right, or vice versa. When you're coming in, you see the rose garden. And the rose garden's pretty much the way it was. But unfortunately, the Japanese garden has lost its little tea house. So, what else?
Joe, what's behind the doors on either side of the fireplace?
Probably
Is
wood
that
storage
wood
for
storage?
the fires. Oh. Basically, for the family, 4. And then down the hall, there were 3 or 4 for the servants. But my grandmother had a huge bedroom, and my grandfather had a little one off to the side that they had joined. And then there were 2 what you would call guest bedrooms. I remember the one my dad used, and then there was another one on the other side. But really, that was basically 4. I don't know, Gail, how many bedrooms do you think there are up there?
Well, there are 3 main bedrooms and there are 2 maids' bedrooms.
Not a lot.
Also your office, I picture, where
There
you
may have been.
So, anyway, yes,
Where would they have bought their clothes at in 1920?
in their clothes. I don't know, Barbara, where would they have bought their clothes? At Frederick and Nelson?
I was going to say Frederick and Nelson.
And where was that at?
Fishers and Rhodes.
In Seattle, Rhodes.
Rhodes and Fishers were the 2 big.
Rhodes and Fishers in Tacoma were excellent stores.
So their
Frederick.
chauffeur would drive them to
Pardon?
downtown? Their chauffeur would drive them to downtown Tacoma?
Oh, yeah, sure. I know my dad drove himself everywhere, and so did my mother. But I think the grandparents were being chauffeured. H.F. Alexander, well, according to my grandmother, Alexander, you shouldn't let him loose with a car. She was a good driver, but he always had a chauffeur right up to the end.
Did they live on Dresden Lake?
They lived well, they started off in town, and then they built what they called Inglewood on Gravelly Lake around 1909, and that was a very native place, and 10, 12 acres anyway, and it was sold to the Griggs family, who sold it to the Wagners, who turned it into Lakewood. So that's where that came. And it looked to me like the Carman's son stole Jack Brothers, the gardener, from the Alexanders because he used to work for them. But when they moved to Seattle, they sold their place to the Greggs in 1925 or 6 and moved to Seattle. And I think Jack Brothers, the gardener, you would see in this picture, who I knew pretty well. He, I think, made the change over. This garden was here as long as he lived. So they had two Japanese, a Japanese couple, Fumi and Mura, and they were the houseman and the cook and the butler all wrapped up in one, as far as I know. And the Alexanders had a Japanese couple too, over on Gravelly Lake. And what happened to that after they moved to Seattle, I don't know. Because in 1930 about, they moved to Los Angeles. Question? Time to go home. Yeah.
If you haven't signed the guest book, it's on the table in the hall, so please do that. Smith would like to have you do that. And again, thank you for coming, and thank you, Joe, and thank you, Ms. Smith. We certainly appreciate it. Okay. So the bands will be happy to take you out now, and we'll see you in September.
Good job, Joe. Nice talk with you.
Very interesting, Joe.